Hello everyone, and I want to welcome you again to one of my tutorial sessions. This time we are going to pick up where we left off in Maya, specifically focusing on the face. Now what we did last time was we took several polygons, like what you see here, and we placed them generally around areas around our face. Now if you look in the front view and side view here, you'll notice that we put them directly upon the red squares. Now the reason why we did that was because we wanted to make sure that when we actually started the modeling that these areas were priority, because with this we can basically bridge the area from one polygon to another. We can get the areas that are in the yellow afterwards, and then eventually focus on the smaller areas once that's done. But as I said before, because we did the groundwork with the red, a lot of the other elements should be relatively easy. So let's give this a shot. Now, first thing we need to do, if we're going to bridge anything, it has to be the same mesh. Now, good news is that's relatively simple. All we need to do is select all the polygons like we did last class, and one of these days I'm going to have a video tutorial that'll show the prior part of this for anyone who might just be tuning in. And I'm going to go to Mesh and Combine. Now again, this is basically going to take these several different planes and make them into one single mesh, making it possible for us to use the bridge. And there we go. So now this is going to be bridgeable. Now, usually I like to work either from the bottom and work my way up, or the top and work my way bottom. I think in this case, the top might be a wiser choice. Now, to bridge this, easiest way to approach this is select the edge option and select one edge and then the other, and shift right click. And there's actually a couple options you can use for this. I'm going to be using the regular bridge option at this point. Now, it's up to you if you want to add divisions, which will basically add some extra lines as we add this in. I usually don't like to do this. I like to go with the, I like to add my divisions via this Insert Edge Loop tool, but, and I'll show what that'll do later. It's not that big of a deal if we decide to go one way or the other. But in this case, I'm just going to hit Apply. And remember, the difference between using Apply and the actual tool name is because I hit Apply, I can actually select the next area, then hit Apply again, and this little area does not disappear, which is actually kind of helpful. So yeah, select that edge, Apply. So I might as well just do this for the rest of the middle of the face so you guys have a chance to see this. And I will have to add some extra edge loops in there a little bit later, but we'll get to that. Now, to add in the extra subdivisions or edges for this, it's actually going to be pretty simple, and this is one of the reasons why I like doing it this method. We have to add at least 3 subdivisions this direction. Well, that's easy. So we're going to select our geometry, shift right click, insert edge loop tool, and basically add an edge where necessary here. Now this is one of the reasons why I like to use 2 views at the same time, because now, there we go. Now it's just a simple matter of using either the edge or vertex, I usually like using vertex myself, and moving the geometry in the correct position. Yeah, there we go. There we go. And there we go. Now, remember, if for whatever reason you can't see the geometry as it is over here, your best bet is to go into the attribute editor. Now you can go there by hitting Control A, or alternatively, you could just select, if you have the option on the side of your screen, just view attribute editor. And remember that you can go to your material over here instead of having to go into Hypershade. And again, you could turn down the transparency of your mesh, making it far easier to see your geometry. So when I need to add more geometry over here, for example, well, that's not going to be too difficult, because all I need to do in this case is select Insert Edge Loop Tool, add the edge loops wherever I need them. In this case, I just need 2. And then in the side view over here, all I would need to do is just move these back. All right, Nice and easy. So we're going to try a couple other areas just to see if this continues to work as well as I hope. Okay, so I'm going to go over here, select the edge loop, and as I stated before, what I'm going to do in this case is, unlike previously, I'm going to use the bridge tool, and I'm actually going to add the subdivisions while I do this. Now in this case, there's two subdivisions over here. You can basically see the amount of edges going from point A to point B is 2. So basically just adding the 2 here and bridging it. And again, it will work. You just need to do a little bit of extra elbow grease, most likely, when that part happens. But there's nothing to say that it can't work. Yeah, there we go. Now, obviously, there's not going to be one over here, but there will be one in this bottom area. This one section is going to be probably one of the toughest ones. Yeah, when I say tough, I mean that in a relative way. I'm just basically, once again, going to use the bridge option. And yeah, in this case, I really want the subdivisions to be a particular way. So there we are. So that's why, in this case, I am once again using the Insert Edge Loop tool. And I am going to be fixing it as I go. Now this area, this particular part of the face, probably going to be one of the tougher areas. Because I have to go to one side, basically over here, and then bring it over like so. Now if you want to, you could try and do them all at the same time. I don't recommend this, because it's tough enough to fix this stuff in ideal circumstances, like I'm doing here. Imagine having to do that all these different times. So that's why I don't recommend doing that if you can help it. Yep, there we go. And there we go. Once you get far enough, if you feel confident enough, you can try and do more than one. Like these 3 over here, they're not in the most complicated areas, so basically just doing the adjustments over here is relatively simple. Then all that matters after this is basically just putting it in the appropriate area. So again, as long as you line up your edges properly, should be little trouble to select these edges like so and move them forward. Okay, and there we are. So let's continue with these other areas. Okay, so sorry about the couple pauses we had there. Some minor technical difficulties, but it looks like we're good now. And again, bridging, again, usually works pretty well. Again, when you get into really complicated areas, I definitely would recommend doing these one at a time. Something you'll notice is the more you do 3D, the more you'll realize that trying to do stuff at a lower polygon count first, if you can help it, does make a couple elements far easier. If I was trying to do everything that I'm doing at a higher poly count, it just would take forever for me to basically fix up even minor areas. But in this case, I'm able to do a much bigger section with relative ease. And I'm working my way from the outside, working my way in. Just because, once again, finding that's easier in this case. course, it always helps if you're in object mode when you're doing Insert Edge Loop Tool. Yep, just moving these forward at this point. Again, your best bet is to just make sure your topology, that's basically what the flow of geometry that we have here, matches with your reference. As long as you do that, a lot of the elements that you need to do later are going to be much easier. Little saying that I say to myself, when in doubt, follow the topology. Ah, beautiful. Okay, so we got a good chunk of our face done already. And some of those areas were the more difficult ones too. Oop, almost picked the wrong tool there. There we go. There we go. And again, we're going to bridge this. Use the Insert Edge Loop tool to place these areas. And readjust and change whatever we need to. Terrific. At this point, I think you guys are probably going to get the idea of what needs to be done next. Nevertheless, I still want to show you guys a method or several methods to get this stuff done, in case you guys may have been a little bit concerned on how to do the next step when it came to bridging up these green edges and polys. And again, follow the topology. Ah, beautiful. Now there's other areas that are going to be a little bit trickier. And we're going to get into those shortly. But let's finish up this last part of the mouth, or the bottom part of the jaw. Yes, that's a mouth apparently. No, there we are. And again, you might find it a little bit easier to do the edges as you go. And the keyword is easier for setting this up, not so much with the whole having to go back into Insert Edge Loop tool, put the edge. Now I've taken the liberty to do most of the green area. If you were able to do the earlier areas, what we have here shouldn't be too much of a problem. The only areas that are going to be a pretty interesting challenge is going to be any areas that kind of over ring or anything like that. Things like here and here and here. And also this area over here could be a little bit nasty too, because you have two verts that are kind of floating. So let's actually do this one first, because this one is actually going to be an easier problem to solve. What we would do if we want to basically connect these areas is we need to use an option called, let's see, merging. So before we do that, I'm going to first basically connect this edge with this edge. Similar to what we did before, we basically have the bridge and we insert the edge loops that we need and do some minor moving. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to try and put this in generally the area that this needs to weld together. And I probably would have to go in the front view too, just to make sure everything's on the up and up. I mean left. And they almost are. Very cool. Now to weld these areas, it's pretty easy. Again, you'll notice that these areas are now disconnected. And to connect them, you select two vertices like so, shift right click, merge vertices, and you can just use the merge vertices option over here. I'd recommend hitting the settings box, and then basically the threshold will be how much much of the distance these two verts are from each other. But in this case, they should be close enough together. Yep, there they are. So it should merge okay. So if for whatever reason it doesn't merge, turn up the threshold and it should be fine. Only thing is, you have to be careful, because if that threshold's too high, you might end up welding more than you meant to. Thank goodness for Command Z. Or Control Z for the Windows users. But once again, you select the two verts that you need. I'd recommend keeping it at the default setting if you can. Yep, that's close enough. Or if you want, if you go to Edit, Reset Settings, and select Merge, that'll merge those areas together, and you are in business. That should be one of the few areas that we need to actually do that. Besides that, it's basically getting to some of those rougher areas that basically would be extruding an edge and bring this over, which I'll explain in just a moment. Okay, so extruding edges so that you could do rounder areas like this. Well, let's give that a shot. Easy enough to do. All you would need to do, similar to what we did with extruding polygons, is shift right click. There should be an option for extrude edge. There is. Of course, you have to select it. Okay. Extrude edge, and yeah, we're going to bring this down and over. So it looks like this area may have selected more than it meant to. And if that ends up being the case, that's a relatively easy fix. I can just select the face option, get rid of the extra face, which is probably going to be that one. And now this is the master face. So you could try to basically just extrude every face. What I'm doing here is I'm just trying to get a general area first, and then use the Insert Edge Loop tool to make a couple extra edges. Oops, looks like I accidentally got too much. There we go. Excellent. Now you got to be careful about quick clicking, as it can be problematic. But now that I have this, I should have enough of an area. I do. To basically select this edge over here, and bridge normally. You'll notice that bridging is definitely going to be a lot easier. So if you have the option, I definitely would recommend using that instead. But sometimes trying to actually use a bridge, like if I was going straight up there to straight down here, it would be challenging. So I found that in this case, doing an extruded edge first should be able to do the job. There we go. So I'm going to show that one more time. Let's see. Yeah, the tough part is finding one that you can do quickly. All right, I think that this area over here, and by the way, don't forget to do the front view and side view together, but I'll get to that a little bit later. So once again, if I don't want to just do a complete bridge, because it can be a little challenging, observe. Yeah, we still probably could do it, but I figure it's a good tool. It's a good practice to learn a new tool anyways. So as I said, I'm going to extrude an edge. Move this upwards, and it seems like I'm having less of a problem this time, which is good. And once again, I just move somewhere around the midway point. And then if I want to just finish the bridge, because I could do that too, I can bridge this area together and then add the insert edge loops afterwards. So I think I'm going to do that now over here. And again, because I did the legwork first, a lot of this is going to end up a lot easier. So the main tool of today would seem to be bridging. Again, if you can get the green area, everything else is going to be relatively simple. Keyword is relatively. Okay. And in a moment, we're going to go to our next spot. But I'm hoping that this will at least give you a good foundation to go to the next step. All right, next step.